Okay, welcome everybody. This is big news. This could be actually the biggest news for Tesla investors in the company's history. So what's being reported right now is SpaceX is possibly in merger talks with xAI. And then Bloomberg is also saying that Tesla could also be part of that fold. And if this all happens, this is a potential $3 trillion. You got a vertically integrated empire. You got AI, space, energy. You got auto, of course, and robots. It's a big one. So I've got Joe Bakhti here with us today, and we've got Jeff Lutz. We're going to talk about it. This first of all sounded like a rumor. It was reported by Reuters initially, and then it was reported by Bloomberg and others. But Elon himself has not come out yet to refute this. And in fact, he made a post that kind of sounds like he is in favor of this. So this is, what's being reported right now. Elon Musk, SpaceX set to consider merger with Tesla or xAI. So at one point, it was confusing. Some of them said, "Oh, SpaceX was in talks with xAI," and then Bloomberg reported SpaceX in talk with Tesla. What I think is actually happening is SpaceX and xAI will merge. They're two private companies, and then from there, maybe either IPO or maybe merge with Tesla afterwards. These are the reports from Reuters himself. And then what happened here was this person posted this, right, saying, "Hey, this news is coming out." And then Beth Bezos says SpaceX will be the Dyson Swarm company. We are locked in Kardashev 2. Dyson Swarm is when you have the data centers around the sun. Elon said, yeah. So he kind of replied that he's saying that that's true. And then I've got other things to support that he's been thinking about this for a while now. Jeff, what do you think is happening?
Yeah, great to be on with you and Joe. I think the way to look at this, first off, this is not confirmed by any company. This is reporting from major news outlets. I think you have to start with what does the future look like and what makes sense. And if you think about what the future looks like and as articulated by Elon, you're going to need tremendous amounts of capital, and you're going to need to form the ability to enable superintelligence. And one of the paths to that and the amount of compute that's needed for Optimus, for AGI, is this approach of space-based data centers. And if you look at the components of a space-based data center, and if you look at what's been happening on Earth with Colossus, and you look at the Tesla Megapacks, you look at eventually Tesla silicon going into these data centers, going into an xAI data center. And then now you look at putting these in space. You look at how does the data going to get back from space to Earth. And then you look at the amount of compute that's needed, the amount of infrastructure that's needed, and the amount of investment that's needed. One logical way to get there would be to consolidate your assets and consolidate your control so you have the most access to capital. And that's what could be happening here. There's a lot of logic behind it. We've talked about it for years, this Tesla xAI piece and this investment piece. And I've said for a long time, Tesla has powered, xAI data centers, original seeding with a lot of engineering and so forth. There's a lot of synergies. And of course, what Grok would do on Optimus and in autonomous vehicles. So I think it comes down to control, consolidation of assets to raise massive amounts of capital to enable the future that Elon has articulated.
Yeah, we don't know yet. This is reported by the news outlets, as you said. Elon hasn't replied yet. Tesla, SpaceX, none of them have replied yet. But if you piece some of the things together, Alexander reminded us this happened in December. So just like last month, he was interviewed. And when he was asked which of his companies excites him the most, when you listen to his answer, it's a conversion of all three. I'll play that video now.
Building has got you most excited today?
Well, I think that there's increasingly a convergence actually between SpaceX and Tesla and xAI. In that if the future is solar-powered AI satellites, which it pretty much needs to be in order to in order to harness a non-trivial amount of the energy of the sun, you have to move to solar-powered AI satellites in deep space, which somewhat is a confluence of Tesla expertise and SpaceX expertise, and xAI on the AI front. So it does feel like over time there's somewhat of a convergence there. But all the companies are doing great things. Very proud of the teams. They do great work.
And then I want to just show this as well. So in July of last year, he said this: I resisted AI for too long, living in denial. Now it's game on. But look what he did here. He tagged xAI, he tagged Tesla, and he also tagged SpaceX. That's July. So he obviously already knew about AI data centers. Maybe he's thinking about something. What do you think, Joe? What's going on?
So I think Jeff made a very good point. It's about capital access. I think there are more points on top of that. If you take a step back, Elon was talking for a very long time, even before buying Twitter, about X Corporation. Because first of all, that was his thing that he merged with PayPal, but he always had that vision to have a unified super corporation. And I think now is the time to indeed do this. One, like at the core logic at the middle is exactly what Jeff said. We have huge synergies with this new future that's now becoming more and more apparent. That is AI data centers in space. From there, of course, optimism space, space mining, moon, the whole thing, which is a very serious endeavor, right? Because the moon, I always said it. I always said Elon is wrong about Mars tactically because we first have to go to the moon. And now everyone seems to be very focused on the moon, also Elon. So the data centers enable us to go into space, into orbit. It's very doable. It's already more cost effective than terrestrial data centers. So that's an enormous boost to the industry. Of course, in the middle of it is SpaceX and Tesla with terafabs, with solar production, which is now SpaceX and Tesla, and of course with xAI. So there is a lot of arguments to be made why these entities should work totally synchronized. And once you get to that conclusion, which is inevitable at this point, the next question is, how beneficial is it to have them unified and merged into a singular entity as opposed to three different entities? And the problem with three different entities, there are two problems, or three. First of all, to Jeff's point, capital raise is just easier if you have a $3 trillion company. It's just easier than doing all these little piecemeals. The second argument is there's this fiduciary duty problem. If you have three entities that do constantly deals, and Elon is a major shareholder in all of them, if SpaceX has to buy solar panels from Tesla or batteries or something, what's the price? How do you determine market price? How do you avoid constant litigation, right? Because some people at X claim, oh, they got bad prices from Tesla, because it's always the same person making the decisions, but for different entities with different stakeholders. So that gets very nasty at some point, especially if SpaceX would also be public and you have all these idiots that might sue you, like this guy in Delaware. So you don't want to be in this situation. So it streamlines this. And I think the last argument that is maybe the most important is that if you put yourself into Elon's shoes, Elon has a lot to do. His life is very complicated, and he wants to have a machine underneath him that just works.
That makes sense.
And even I struggle on a very small basis. I went through something in a way comparable on a very abstract level. I have these different trading accounts. I have like two companies, my personal and retirement, right? And I have the Tesla shares and my strategies are in these different accounts. And I really started to only actively trade one singular account and basically not making as much money in the other accounts, simply for operational reasons. I can't just log in all day long into different accounts and replicate my strategy. And if that's even a problem for me, how bad is it for Elon to say, oh, now I'm not Tesla on Tuesday, I'm actually SpaceX, and I'm not allowed to say ABC because that's only Tesla's interest. It's not in the interest of SpaceX. It would drive me nuts if I'm in the middle of like building the space mega technology. And I think people underestimate this. This is like a very personal thing. But if you are Elon, friction is the worst thing in your life because that stresses you out on a minute-by-minute basis. And so I think to give Elon the super engine, the super machine around him, requires at some point that this thing is a singular entity, in my opinion. And that's for me the biggest argument that this is actually happening.
The biggest argument, I think, is capital raise, right? SpaceX, and he does not want SpaceX to go IPO. He's talking IPO now because they need to raise a lot of money if they want to do AI data centers. But the other point you made, I thought was great, which is they can buy things at cost. They can get the robots at cost. They can get the Grok and AI at cost. They can get everything, energy at cost. And there, that allows them to have a major competitive advantage. So
they can basically distribute the profit margin. They don't need to be super accurate how to attribute the profit margin throughout the entities if it's one entity, but if it's not, they can get sued for not doing that. And
they have to sell them at cost or even higher. So here's walk me through what's going to happen here. Okay, SpaceX said they were going to go IPO. Then now it's the discussion here. SpaceX and xAI are going to merge. Makes sense because they're both private companies. This is the time to do it. SpaceX and xAI. xAI needs to raise more money than anyone else can do. If OpenAI is talking about $1 trillion data center, they need to get $1 trillion center. Where's their revenue? How do they do it? So they're going to merge. That makes sense, tremendous sense. Now, once SpaceX and xAI merge, the discussion in these articles is that they might go IPO. That doesn't make sense to me. I think what would happen is there is a merger with Tesla at that point. Tesla's already public. So if you say SpaceX is $800 billion, let's say that they're $1 trillion. And then you've got xAI, $250 billion. Now you have a $1.25 billion company merging with a $1.5 trillion Tesla. Tesla would get 55% of this massive company. They become a public company. That makes more sense to me than SpaceX and xAI going IPO and then some sort of merger. How do you guys think this is going to break down?
Well, I think.
Go ahead, Joe.
I think. Oh, sorry. Just very briefly, I think this leak seems to be pretty legitimate because Elon actually responded to one of these, and I think it's a major indicator that the Tesla merger will also become much more likely now. I first heard it from Chamath. I thought, interesting idea. Chamath always knows more than you think. So I thought, interesting. I put like a 20% chance after Chamath said it, up from 0. Now I put an over 50% chance because now the whole ball is starting to roll down the hill because xAI is very important, SpaceX is very important, and it shows that Elon is thinking about consolidation, and the logical next step would be that. So the strategic question is, do they want to merge it or not? If yes, what you propose is kind of the logical thing. The question is, will they do it? There are also downsides to it, by the way. It just puts all eggs into a singular basket. And people talk about politics. What if the Democrats win and then say there's an antitrust issue? But since it's such different industries, I don't think so. So I think the main question is, does Elon want this, merger? I think then it's going to happen, and it's going to happen the way you outlined.
I think we're watching a progression, and I agree with what Joe was saying there. Just to add, this progression actually started with X and xAI merging together, and it even started with Elon even floating the whole thing of an X basket of companies. A couple of years ago, there was dialogue back and forth on X about that. So you have that as a bookend. Then you saw him put X and xAI together. And then the whole conversation ramped up about Tesla investing in xAI. And he commented, I would love for that to happen, but we would need, approval from the board and the shareholders. And I think we're just watching this snowball of consolidation of his companies occurring. And I keep coming back to what does end state look like? End state looks like, to Joe's point, the simplification and clarity. It looks like better access to capital. It looks like a consolidation of his assets and control. And control, I think, is really key given we're building out AGI in humanoid robots. So that's one piece of this. the other thing I think would be really important for the viewers to understand is Tesla as a company is being remade rapidly right in front of our eyes. For the last 2 years, we've talked about, oh, it's not going to be a car, it's more than a car business. We kept having to like convince people, but we would still be kind of hanging by a thread. What are the deliveries numbers look like? Are they 10,000 too low? Are they 10,000 too high? And then energy started ramping up. And then now we're getting very close with robotaxi. I actually think what's happening here with this consolidation of assets, what they're going to reveal with a more human-looking Optimus in a couple of months and a more capable Optimus, I don't think we're going to remember in a year or two that we're not going to think of Tesla as a car company with all these things bolted on anymore. It's going to be this Optimus physical real world AI company, energy company, enabling, and then the silicon company. It's being remade very rapidly. This is unbelievable speed that's actually happening right in front of our eyes. I've never seen, and I've been following the company for almost 15 years. I've never seen this amount of rapid transformation of the company. This is turning into a completely different company right in front of our eyes.
And I also think, I totally agree. And I think when you look at the earnings call, Elon was actually very adamant pushing against that, oh, what about new car models and everything? He was repeatedly saying, this is all going to be autonomy. It's all going to be cyber cabs. No one wants cars anymore. He said that in the earnings call. And you can tell, if you know Elon a little bit, he's thinking already ahead. Like, dude, let's talk about Optimus. Let's talk about data centers. Let's talk about solar, which is the next big thing. Very funny that solar suddenly becomes the new sexy thing because it's solar in space at massive scale. And so I totally agree that we are going through this transformation. And what was fascinating, little side story, when I looked at the news today, I watched like randomly one video with Mark Andreessen, who's very bullish on AI. And then there's a super leftist channel. I forgot like what the name is, like a European with these Brits. They're like really commie. And I kind of like them because they're so honest about that they're like total little commies. And they said, oh, that was such a disastrous earnings call. It shows Tesla basically is finished. And there were multiple people saying this. And it struck me as such a fascinating thing that is very representative of the world right now, that people see the same thing and they see completely different things. Mark Andreessen watches the earnings call and says, oh my God, they're going to not just taking over the Earth, they're going to take over the entire galaxy now. And the others, the little Brits, sit there like, okay, now it's safe to say Tesla is dead. It's like very interesting because they just see car sales going down and they totally don't get it. Whereas the other side understands, not just with Tesla, but this transformative, crazy thing that we are witnessing with AI. I see it every day when in my work. It's just insane what we can do now. And so I think Elon is absolutely on a building spree. You have to imagine inside Tesla and SpaceX and all this companies, what's going on with AI. They suddenly can do insane things, right? It's a huge productivity boost. And so they are planning for the big grab, the space grab. And I think it's super exciting, but we should not forget that kind of half of the world thinks the exact opposite. They think it's the end. The end is coming.
Yeah. So this idea that SpaceX is going to merge with xAI, first of all, that is out of left field, right? Kind of makes sense, of course, but I don't know how many people here was predicting that. This idea that SpaceX would merge with Tesla, even that was out of left field. Chamath was saying this in January. He was in All In podcast, they were all asked, what is your contrarian view? What's something you think might happen this year no one else is thinking about? And he said he thinks SpaceX will IPO, but rather do not IPO, but rather do a reverse merger.
My contrarian belief, number one, is I don't think SpaceX will IPO. I think that it will reverse merge into Tesla, and I think Elon will use it as a moment to consolidate control and power of his two seminal assets into one cap table.
Oh my God, I love that. Wow.
Well, he's talked about that before. He's talked about having a holding company for years of all of the collection. You could put Neuralink in there too, right, Chamath? You could put in the boring company as well.
Sure. I'm just giving you my contrarian take. There will be no IPO for SpaceX. I think it'll
Okay.
just be, it specifically will be a reverse merger.
There you go.
Now,
You're
Jawad is
not gonna
good
get
friends.
Herbert, I was going to say, you're not going to get a better political climate over the next 2 to 6 years than you may have right now.
So he's not only does he need to raise money to fund all this, but this is the right timing, and he just says, "Screw it,
Yeah.
let's do it."
I mean, he already said SpaceX IPO, this year. There's talk about his birthday. You look at the midterms coming. You look at all this. I want to go back to I think there's one other point that underpins all of this, and that is the concentration of engineering and AI assets that he has in his company. There's no other company that has this, and the concentration of manufacturing assets and capital procurement, component procurement. All this is coming together. It was already loosely happening. Like when Elon went out and said, "Hey, I need GPUs," he was speaking on behalf of xAI and Tesla, and he's looked at as getting to the front of the line all the time. But this is true. This could be true consolidation of engineering and procurement assets. Like, what other company has this? Then you look at the portfolio of these companies, and that's where the valuation is going to be derived. What are these companies building, and what is the future value of what they're building? Look at them separately. There were already mass Starlink, Starship, and what was happening separately. And now you have these things combined, and now they're going to be building out massive amounts of solar, massive amounts of space-based data centers. It just, you have to look at this. What has been added and bolted on to what he wants to do? It's just unbelievable. But it's all underpinned by this management philosophy, this Tesla, SpaceX culture, this manufacturing consolidation that they would have, and in the engineering. It is very special.
Hey, okay, so what I'm confused with is that you just said he came out and said SpaceX is going to IPO this year a month ago. And then speculation wasn't going to happen
He
in
said
June.
public. Maybe he said public. Maybe he said go public. That could be through Tesla. Anyway, yeah.
Ooh, let's take a look at that. You're right. Maybe we all assumed it was an IPO, but and then did he change his mind? Now he's going to do a reverse merger. So let's break this down. Like, what's the likelihood at this point? Do you guys think? I mean, I think I got the Poly Market numbers here that SpaceX and xAI will merge. And then after that, what's the likelihood that that entity would even merge, would include Tesla at all? I don't know.
I think why I can kind of relate to Elon's thinking process, because he's in the middle. This is all secondary. The primary thing for him is he's sitting on the giant progress horse. He's working on the stuff. It's like data centers in space. He does the math. Oh my God, we can transition all terrestrial data centers into space in very short order once Starship is ready, which is like end of this year or something. I did the math on it. I had a video on it. It's like, it's mind-boggling. It's just immediately 60% cheaper than terrestrial, including transport to space. It's crazy if you understand what that means. It means like there will be the most massive space race ever, and SpaceX has a monopoly on that. So in his mind, and he understands we need unlimited compute. That's also what most people don't get. I think Kevin, what's his name? Kevin, like the finance Kevin. Do you know this guy? The
Meet
YouTuber
Kevin? Yeah.
Meet Kevin. He had like a completely wrong take on the whole thing. He's like, oh, the AI bubble, now it's bursting. The S-curves come to an end. It's the exact opposite. It's going to go vertical now. And Elon sees this. And so in his mind, he's like, we need to build like crazy. We need solar panels, massive like terawatts of space solar, which needs to be a little adjusted. I need 100 gigawatts from Tesla and 100 gigawatts from SpaceX. He already said that. I do it in parallel because we don't have enough capacity for both have to go all in, and then xAI. So that's the kind of mindset I think he's in. And then from there flows, okay, what are we even doing with all these little companies? It should be one, like I need to get this out of the way. He's not a tactician who's like playing chess with corporate structures. I think he's just sitting there like, we need to get this done. Why is everything so full of friction with all these different companies? And so he's pushing for it and says, oh, and we need to raise money. Let's take SpaceX public. And then he's working a little bit more. And then he says, why do we even do all that stuff? Let's just merge them. And then of course, he has considered all of this, but I think in his mind, it's like, let's just push it forward, raise money, take it public, and merge them.
All right. So I got a lot more questions, but by the way, this is what Ed Ludlow of Bloomberg said in middle of 2025. He said, here's how it's been explained to me by investors and insiders. This is like last year. Most companies are moving toward a vertically integrated AI infrastructure model with clear strategic overlap. xAI needs global distribution and low latency inference at scale. So they need the data centers. They need the inference chips. Starlink via SpaceX offers exactly that, and to get the actual communication. So SpaceX funding xAI is less about external investment and more about securing a core customer for its satellite network. Interesting. As space-based data infrastructure becomes more viable through players like Relativity, StarCloud, early alignment between compute, distribution, and application becomes a competitive edge. The broader architecture combines distribution, Starlink, compute, Tesla and NVIDIA, models, xAI, and interface, X and Grok, into a loosely connected, purpose-driven stack. Okay, interesting.
I think, Herbert, there's a huge thing happening in the background, and we won't be privy to it publicly. But if I'm starting to piece things together, I actually think the government would potentially accelerate this transaction because of our dependence on the private sector for the Golden Dome, for the space race that's happening, for the energy race that's happening, and like, why would you
The
bet
AI
against
race.
Elon? The AI race.
Yeah.
Why would you bet against and impede Elon versus help him, knowing that there could be this whole other layer of Tesla business coming, which is the defense side of it, and it's not necessarily just a U.S. thing either. It could be global. But you think of Starshield, you think of StarCloud, you think of Golden Dome, you think of everything that's happening from the Grok deal with the Department of War that just occurred, that was just announced over a couple of weeks ago, with Grok powering a lot of things in the Pentagon now. And I think there's this whole other dimension to Tesla business coming, which will be defense and government.
And to this point, excellent point. When you think about it, I did some math on it. If they all merge, I think the probability that this X corporation, whatever we call it, will become the third largest economy on the planet before 2040 is 80%. They will be bigger than Japan, bigger than Germany on a GDP level, not market cap. People always confuse that. I mean, on a real GDP level, which is nuts. And that also means Elon will absolutely triple down on politics, but not like last time. He will do it behind the scenes, and there's a merger no one talks about. It's the merger between X Corporation and the United States. That's like the next merger. So I think the infiltration and merging with the government is an imperative given the size of this whole thing, the importance of this whole thing, like robots, autonomy, and super AI and space. This is all super important. And for Elon, what is the biggest risk for him? It's the wrong government, because these people hate him. And if the wrong people get into government, they could be his biggest problem. And I think by him embracing the government like that, and the government becoming super dependent, but it's a mutual benefit, and you have a super friendly government right now with Trump and David Sachs and everyone, I think that's also happening behind the scenes. So I totally agree with Jeff, and I would take it to even another level. I think.
But that is actually the negative about this whole thing. Okay, we have to talk about the negative. So you guys have given tremendous, great background of why this could work and what's the benefit. Here's the negative. This is what Bloomberg said. This is Ed Ludlow. Problem is that at that time he thinks it's all going to be done as a single. Each of them is not going to be through a single entity, because if you combine them together, you're going to have regulatory issues. It's going to trigger antitrust security scrutiny, create compliance burdens across multiple jurisdictions. Keeping them separate, there's more flexibility for partnerships, spin-outs, fundraising. It's a modular approach to controlling capital. So combining them, doesn't that, I mean, I asked this question to Chamath and everybody slammed me going, are you stupid? I asked Chamath because he replied to all this. And I said, do you only see pros and you don't see any negatives? Like what are the, but there are obviously negatives of doing this. Clearly the pros probably outweigh the negatives. I'm just saying that there are negatives.
I'll answer quickly, and then it depends what the company is doing post merger, and they can be operating somewhat separately in some domain, just like Samsung, for example. When you go do business with Samsung like in the mobile phone world, Apple, us before others, we were buying displays from Samsung, but we were competing with them on smartphones, and that can happen. You're buying memory from Samsung, but you're competing with them in smartphone and other devices. That can happen if the companies are structured and run properly. And my guess is Elon's going to want that. He's going to want to serve and work with these other businesses. He'd want to license out autonomy to drive, the safety of transportation. He'd want to do those things. So it all depends on how it's structured. I mean, it's easy to say that there's increased risk for breakup and so forth. I get that, but they were calling to nationalize SpaceX just because he said the wrong thing a couple of months ago. So, and by the way, there were calls from both sides on that. So, if it's structured properly and it's serving the public and it's serving the government in a very strategic way, I think it will be treated differently. And I've seen an actual turn in how the Democrats have been approaching or addressing Elon in the last, call it 6 months to year. It's almost like there's been this. I'm not saying they've come over to the other side with him, but it's almost, there's been this realization of like, maybe we should not have been attacking this person nonstop.
I think it's also it's also the big question, and we know the answer with Elon. Do you play defense or do you play offense? You play defense by trying to hide. It's like, oh, let's not make it too big. Let's keep them all small. Maybe no one is going to chase us, right? That's how normal companies operate. Or you play offense. You say, well, I have a plan. It's the galaxy, right? It's the whole solar system. I want, Kardashev and stuff like that. I can't deal with, oh, maybe the Democrats win and then I go to jail or something. He has to play offense. And offense means consolidation, accumulation of power in that organization, but also not trying to run away from the government. He has to do the opposite. He has to go inside the government and make sure these things don't happen. And I'm pretty sure, the Democrats also want power, right? So if you do deals with the Democrats, then they will leave him alone. I think that's what I mean. I think Elon is not going away from politics. He will do the opposite. He has to do the opposite. This is much more a merger approach. It's not a normal company. If you have that size of a company, that's the third largest economy in the world soon, that is absolutely fundamental for national security, not just for that, for the entire economy. I love it because it's a new paradigm, right? This is not a company anymore. This is like a new thing, and you can't just treat it like a company. It's similar to mega banks. You can also not go to Chase and say, oh, you're too big. Let's just destroy Chase. Then the whole economy implodes because it's so entrenched and complicated and big. And that's now the same thing with this AI empire. So new things, and that's where Elon operates best, with first principles. It's all unprecedented. It's completely new paradigms that no one has seen before. And you have to think from scratch. And it blurs the line between what's a company, what's a country, what's an alliance, what is national security, what's revenue, what's GDP. It's all turning into a blur. I kind of like it. You have to think about it.
So what would he call all of this? He posted this as well just yesterday. All my exes live in Texas, musical signs. Now, it could mean nothing. He's just having fun. It's him. But it could also, some people go, exes. Okay, you got your SpaceX, you have your xAI. Tesla is not an X, but could, so what could he call this whole thing X Corp and then have as a holding company each of these underneath it, just like Berkshire?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that has been discussed actually for a number of years. And one more thing, just to go back on this government tie-up piece, you can see in the president's posts, and you can see in some of the other speeches from the cabinet members, there's a little bit of a disdain for how the current defense industry, in both in cycle time and costs, are serving the government. And there's this concern that we're not building weapons fast enough, we're not executing fast enough, all the way from the new Air Force One plane to restocking munitions, and just not executing fast enough. And then here you have Elon, who comes in and is getting every schedule down to the laws of physics, driving speed, driving cost. So anyway, I could just see a pull occurring again to do more work. So I think this if this occurs in this new Tesla or this new X Corp, I think one of the big TAM drivers, or one of the big market capitalization drivers for it, besides building some of the biggest products we'll ever see with Optimus and so forth, is going to be this government and defense side of it. I think it's going to be enormous.
And it's, what we have to understand, what people underestimate a little bit is, I think Optimus is only the third biggest product of all time. Like the second biggest product of all time is AI, like the actual intelligence, and that will be in space. And the biggest product of all time is the universe, space, unlimited stuff. And so that's why SpaceX and X are so important. And from a national security perspective, when you look at military doctrine, there's this paradigm of higher ground, always has been. Who has the higher ground? And that was first the Air Force, then first it was like climbing the hills and the artillery, and then it was the Air Force, and now it's space. And there is no company and no country that has the space domination of SpaceX. And you have to understand, if you control space to that extent, all the hypersonic missiles and everything is like out of the window, because you can shoot this all down. You control space. So it's of enormous importance. And the other enormously important thing for national security is, of course, AI. And we know the paradigms. You need unlimited energy, you need chips, you need compute. This is all space-based AI. So it's the magic combination. I think it dawns on people. It started just dawning on me like 6 weeks ago when I realized Google is also in, and Amazon wants it, and Elon. And I did the math on it, and I realized this is going to happen now. This is like so enormous, people didn't really get it. This is the space age. We have now, for the first time, not just an economic reason to do massive space expansion, but the most important national security and economic reason. So this will happen much more rapidly than people understand. By 2030, we will have massive space AI. And from there, it's going to get completely nuts. And this is about dimensions of money no one can even imagine. Because we remove all the limitations, not just from intelligence, but also from matter. Because once you're on the moon and in space, there is no limit to stuff, obviously.
Crazy.
So, and what was always missing in space is, what is the economic rationale? How do you afford going to space? And you needed that thing that makes you more money than it costs. And now we have it, and it's unlimited. It's energy and intelligence.
Wow, you guys are great. What is going to happen to Tesla investors? So as I'm a Tesla investor, we all
They're
own
going to get
100%
rich,
of
Herbert.
Well, let's walk me through it, right? So we all own 100% of Tesla. If this does happen and we merge with a SpaceX xAI entity, we would get, I think the calculations are 55% of that company. But it's the company. It's got xAI, AGI, you got everything, and you just went through. What is going to happen to Tesla stock?
Well, Jeff, do you want to take the first round on that?
Well, the only thing I would say is, first off, we don't know. First off, this is reporting. This isn't a deal
Yep,
that's
we don't
firmed
know.
up. But if it happens, we would need to see the structure of it to comment on it effectively. The way I would just approach the conversation is, why does Tesla have a 250x PE? It doesn't have a 250x PE for its current earnings. What it has a 250x PE on is its portfolio of products, how differentiated there are, and how much capital that those products will return when they are scaled up. Now take that and now multiply by all these other portfolios coming together. You have xAI working on, AGI. You have SpaceX working on um, discovering and expanding our place in the universe. And you have Tesla now expanding its scope beyond autonomy, beyond humanoids, to the silicon that's going to drive all of that super intelligence and then all of that capability across physical real world AI. And then you have the solar and you have the energy piece massively expanding. So I think what you're left with when this expansion, or if this consolidation occurs, is you have the best portfolio of any company in existence. And then what multiple do you put on that? I think is the conversation you have to have. And what industries are they serving? I talked about government. We talked about everything that's being served here. What company is a comp? That's where the conversation comes back to, because 6 months ago we're talking about Ford and GM and we're talking about whatever. What conversation are we having 6 months from now, and who are we comping to?
And it's like, what Tesla is building now, from Robotaxi to Optimus, are these pretty superior or perfectly designed hardware platforms that embody AI, that carry AI. And what is missing, I mean, it's not really missing, but what turns it into super things is the AI. So if Tesla gets that level of dominance with SpaceX and X, because we have to translate that, if you have a 60% cost advantage and unlimited chip production and unlimited energy, I mean, it's totally game over. Like, people have to understand that, and that converts into AI. And if you then have an unlimited army of robots, which Tesla will absolutely win, of course, like the hardware game, and you have Robotaxi, if you just type this into your Excel sheet and do a little bit of margin calculations, it's completely nuts, the whole thing. And similar to this national security topic, I think it's important, to play chess when the others play checkers. There's like, oh, my product is nicer, we have faster to market cycles. And then the other guy's like, well, but I have like a intergalactic AI energy, Kardashev 3 civilization. So it's like you're playing on a totally different level. You can't compete. It's game over, and no one can get to compete because it's too crazy. It's like Starlink. What are you going to do? Only Starlink on steroids. So, I think in the end it translates into a completely insurmountable mega mode. Like, if you are sitting there and say, I also have a robot. Okay, but do you have an intergalactic AI system with unlimited energy? No.
Unlimited autonomous transportation. So near zero cost transportation, near zero cost energy, because you're going to get close to the sun and have all those solar panels. Near zero cost of intelligence because of all the AI data centers, the low chips, and near zero cost labor.
I want to bolt onto this by just saying, this deal, if they were to kick this off and get it going, would take some number of months or a year, whatever, to come together. What's the backdrop while this deal is coming together? Obviously, what will be happening at Tesla? You're going to have Robotaxi ramping into the tens of thousands, maybe getting to 100,000 or more Robotaxis over that time period, versus the next competitor that's just at a few thousand. So there's going to be demonstration that what this leader says and does is actually coming to fruition. So you're going to have the Robotaxi backdrop. You're going to have xAI going to Grok 5 and its capabilities in the backdrop. You're going to have Colossus, being in Colossus 2, the hugest supercomputer in the world and built in record time, all in the backdrop. You're going to have Tesla Energy scaling to new heights, this new mega block product coming up in the background. You're going to have a human-like looking Optimus demoed in Q1 and starting production by the end of the year. That will all be in the backdrop. You'll have those Optimus working in a Tesla factory. That's going to be this mosaic that is operating in the backdrop while this deal is coming together, and people have to start thinking about what is the value of this combined entity. I think it's quite powerful because these things are they're all starting to converge right now for Elon. And as these things start to converge, he just bolts on top. Solar, Terafab, and all these new things continue to get bolted on top. But now you're going to be, the point is while this is being consummated, you're going to see real execution of these things that don't exist anywhere else.
And in terms of valuation, right? It's a true, let's call it $3 trillion. And you have current valuation today, right? Because you have a Tesla at 1.5, you have xAI at 250 billion, then you have 800 billion or 1 trillion for SpaceX. But if they're to combine together, right, I think people will go, this is my, equity instrument I can buy into that has all of Elon's companies, all the synergies. It could easily, I don't know, double. And then he raises $1 trillion.
I think it's
$2 trillion.
I think what we will see, of course, there's always everything takes a little longer than expected, but this whole space AI situation, what people don't understand is this is not some fantasy in 10 years. This works at the millisecond where Starship is fully operational and can do lift off and land again and then lift off again. You can do that immediately if you have the technology ready, which is only minute tweaks on the chips, like make them space ready, a little more radiation resistance, and figuring out these radiators for heat, but that's completely trivial for Tesla, in my opinion, or for SpaceX. And adapting the solar panels, but they already have space. So this is immediately effective and has an immediate effect on cost cutting for these hyperscalers. So it's just enormous when you do the math. It's unlimited. You need out of the gate 100 starships. I did the math already. You just to get these few gigawatts into space, you need like 100 starships that go every 3 days or something.
And he'd have to be able to be open to partner and have customers. Like if Microsoft and Amazon and those guys want to go out there, he'll have to choose them as customers, right? He can't just be monopolizing it. Or can he?
Yeah, but it's like these are complicated business questions, because if you could operate these kind of centers at 40% of cost, you don't even need customers. You just raise money and knock them out, right? But I mean,
but I think he needs
whatever
to.
The strategy will be. And I think to the higher ground theme in military doctrine, I think what we also have to understand, these are infrastructures, these are giant infrastructures. And once you start building them in space, it has literally a moat. It's called the atmosphere is the moat, right? You can't just do that. Like, how are you going to get your data center in space without them? So then you're starting to build this thing. And from there, you can go to the moon. And once you look at space economics, it's just enormous synergies. Once you're up there, you can carry the stuff from the moon to there. You save like tremendous energy. And so this becomes very, very, very enormous. And Tesla will just be in the middle of it. So I'm very, very bullish on this completely new angle because I also see a lot of pressure and economic advantages for moving fast.
Yeah. And we're
but
only
to Jeff's
talking
point,
about...
I mean, it's just overlapping with this whole robotaxi trajectory that starts in April, in my opinion. And then you see that scale up. So we are also going to get cash from the core business on top of it.
Yeah, I would just close. I mean, people are like, "Oh, you're whatever. Everything's you're outrageous, whatever." I mean, the other side of this is there's this concern by one side of the political aisle that there's too much consolidation of power with Elon. Just he was already growing too big, the richest person in the world, and even though these things separately would have still added to his net worth, I think you're going to get this bizarre, weird, political, contrived, orchestrated, planned pushback that will happen in the background. But the other thing I would leave people with is, again, this portfolio of companies. We're only talking about the things that Elon has told us. But if you start interpolating some of the other things that he's doing with his companies, with manufacturing, with starting at silicon all the way up, he's getting to the point where, again, he's not just going to be building GPUs. He's going to be building memory. He's going to be building a number of things. And I'm seeing all these different Starlink direct to mobile testing. He's not doing that as just a fun experiment. Now, all of a sudden, you start thinking about the entire terrestrial, cellular networks, which I know operate in a different manner, but you're seeing this convergence happening pretty quickly for space-based communications. And now you talk about, what is this thing that there's 4.5 billion people running around every day in front of their face, glued to their face every day? And could that be a different device, a better device? So there's other things happening that have just not been announced or formalized. When you have all these assets, and now to me, adding the silicon piece of it is a big piece, and that's going to take a period of time. I want people to realize that that's not a this year thing, a next year thing at scale. That's going to take a period of time. But in that period of time, Elon is creating leverage with all the current and existing silicon providers, knowing that he is going to create and enable this capacity. He is going to be able to get front of the line preference and great pricing and capacity in the meantime. So there's just a lot going on here. But if I think you bring it back full circle, Herbert, this is unconfirmed, but all the pieces are out there. Both there's a desire to do this from Elon himself. He's basically spoke about it. And there are real synergies in these companies, all underpinned by this concentration of engineering, manufacturing, AI assets that he's been building over the last several years. That's actually called the monopolistic whatever. That is the monopoly that's happening in the background. I think people in government are a little bit too ignorant of that. That's what's actually happening. It's not that all these companies, it's this consolidation and concentration of this talent.
Well, and I think the magic of it is, which is similar to other pioneers in history, like, Standard Oil and these people, Rockefeller. Mm-hmm. Now we think that's obvious. Like, of course, you vertically integrate oil production, but you have to understand there was no oil. They invented everything, right? Oil didn't even have a market. And so it's similar to here, that Elon sees a future that most people don't see yet, the fully integrated AI future. So he can prepare the monopoly on a market that doesn't exist yet. And that's why everyone is blind to it. But then suddenly it exists and he has a monopoly. So yeah, I mean, for me, the most interesting frontier in that entire Musk strategy is actually people and politics. Because I think that is the final piece of the puzzle that Elon has to solve. Because he's getting now to a critical mass. If he doesn't master that piece, that's how they're going to get him. Right? Because he's now so big, if there is like some sort of political thing, they say, we have to get rid of Musk or prevent trillionaires, he's toast. And he knows that. But I think that's a totally different game from engineering. How do you deal with people and opinion and politics? And he dabbled around a little bit in it. But I think that will be one of the most interesting frontiers, because it will also shape our civilization. Like, what will people decide in the end? Like, what's the plan? In the end, now this whole thing becomes so big that it becomes like one of the central questions for our societies. How do you handle something like that? Do you fight it? Do you want to try to get rid of Elon? Do you block him? Do you embrace it? But how? So these are very, very important questions. And I think now it's so big, the whole thing, that he has to handle that somehow.
One last question, guys. So what happened, just to catch up the folks here, is that Bloomberg and Reuters reported that there's, They think that they've heard that SpaceX is considering to merge with xAI, and then separately they think that they're going to merge with Tesla as well. Elon has not responded to it, except for there was this one post here by this person, Elon Musk, SpaceX in talks to merge with xAI before IPO, Reuters reports. And then Jeff Bezos says SpaceX will be the Dyson Swarm company. We're locked in for Kardashev 2. Elon said, yeah. So did he obviously read that this is a report? Do you guys think, what's the benefit if maybe this was a purposely leaked info? That is there a benefit that Elon and the team thought, you know what, let's let them know now that this is the plan, as opposed to, oh, how do they find out that we're going to do this?
That happens. There's trial balloons. That's certainly
trial balloon.
Yeah, that does happen. I'm not saying it happened here, right, but that does happen. But I mean, Elon is very active on X. He's seen all this. He's drumming some of it on. He's not. If it was like, no, we're not raising capital, or no, we're not doing XYZ, he would just come out and say, we're not doing XYZ, and be very objective about it. So could it be yes or no? It's an interesting thing to speculate on. Could be a trial balloon floated by them just to see what the reaction is. Maybe.
Yeah. I also think, the way my hypothesis for Elon's brain, how he operates, is he uses X as his hive mind. So it's not that everything is perfectly planned out all the time before it happens. I think it's like a gut feeling. It's like, oh, that could be interesting, but there are 10 million things to consider. And so the smartest people are on X. I think it's totally something where Elon also reads the responses and sees what's happening to actually shape the plan if someone says something smart.
Sounds good. Thank you. We did a good job, guys. You guys explained all the
that
benefits.
Could be you. If you tweet, Elon, don't do it. Or Elon, do it now.
Don't do it. I'm all for this. As a Tesla investor, I'm very excited. As I thought it some more, I got more and more excited about this. I absolutely, as a Tesla investor, want to own xAI. I want to be part of AGI and
SpaceX.
And then now I never really was a SpaceX fan like all the other folks like Larry and you guys that I've been interviewing. But now that he started talking about AI data centers and why that makes sense, that then made more sense for me.
That's the point, Herbert. That's the point.
Yeah.
It's not. They're not these separate things doing. They're not these separate companies doing separate things anymore. There's this convergence happening. So why not instantiate it in how the actual companies are organized?
And he gets his over 25%.
He gets his control. And access to capital. I think it
trillions
comes back
of dollars
to those
of capital.
Things. Control, and I mean, he had access to capital before, but again, you had this distinct Tesla, $40+ billion. You had xAI with a little bit of money, but quite frankly, they got a lot of expenditures in front of them, and then you have SpaceX as well. But together, and then his percent control and that consolidation of capital. I mean, he can get money anytime he wants, but now you've got this whole thing together. I mean, look at the money that Tesla has to start spending now. So I think this point in time also makes sense given the capital expense curve that's coming in front.
Thank you, everybody. See y'all.
Thank you.
See ya.